Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sean Hunter, if you haven't ever witnessed one of my presentations before. I've been with Turnkey now just 1 month over 7 years, so been here for a while, hanging out. My main focus is supply chain reporting, those areas in the business, but I can kind of span over a lot of different areas. So today we're going to be talking about reporting. So, there's one thing on the agenda that was out there, but what I really wanted to focus on is, which option to use. So, okay, you guys have been in the GP space for a while. You've been in the GP space for a short period of time. You guys online. It's been a long time or a short period of time, but, there's a lot of different reporting options that are out there. So I'm just going to skip right past GP reports, the ones that come out of the box, just because they're there, they're there. You'll use those on a daily basis. What I want to get into is some of the things above and beyond that. So today, we'll talk first about, where some of our decision points come from when we get into reporting within the system. Who's your audience is one of the biggest areas. So I'll talk about that and some of the strategies that come in my discussions when talking with individuals who want to go down the road of a reporting solution. We'll get into some smart list type question, ideas, concepts, SSRS, Business Analyzer, Excel, and Power BI. So I'm going to show off a few things with Power BI. We have some exciting things that just came out of that here recently as well. So first place that I'm going to jump into is, the big question. Okay, we're going to sit down. We need to create a report. Person says, hey, I need this information from the system. Who is that person? What type of audience are they? Are they an end user? Are they technically savvy? So first of all, do they have a GP license? Okay, great. If they do, we could give them something directly in GP. Maybe one of the GP reports works for them already. Maybe it needs a little fine tuning. It's not as pretty as it could be. But do they have a GP license? That opens up Smart List as well. If they don't, then we're on to a different path. Are they in the same office or on the road? That makes another piece of it as well. Okay, they're out on the road. Maybe they need to get something emailed to them. Maybe they need to log in remotely to access this. They're on the road. Maybe they don't even have a GP user at that point as well. So thinking about their environment that they're going to work in. What technology is available to them? Do they have a smartphone? Are they still stuck on the flip phone? Do they not even have a phone? Do they have a tablet? So what type of technology is available to them to view this report, to digest this report? I always throw this one out there too. Do they have internet? Do they have 4G? Again, that goes back to the technology that they have available to them. But let's say that they're out in rural areas and things like that, and service is nowhere to be found. Okay, well, you want them to get this information once they get service back. So thinking about those types of things for how their connectivity is. Go back to the first thing that I kind of threw out there. Are they technically savvy? Okay, is this person going to get this report and know that they got to click here, and then they need to do this with the pivot table, and they got to drag this field over, and they got to dance around with it a little bit, or are they going to open it up and go, there's my information, and I'm on my way? What type of person are they? So I've always got to think about those things as I'm diving down the road with custom reporting or any type of reporting in the system. And that goes along with this one. Do they want to analyze their own data? Are you getting an Excel spreadsheet that you're going to slice and dice yourself? Or again, are they just looking for you to give them the final product? A good question there is, okay, if you're a financial analyst, you're going to get a download of Excel maybe, and you're going to dig through that. But if you're the bank, if you're sending this report to the bank, they're not going to do any of that. They want you to hand them a static report that has the information they want to see, and they're on their way. So just some different questions there on who the audience is and kind of the areas that they have available to them as we're going down that road with those with a reporting solution. So first area to talk about is my opinion on smart lists. And I keep getting into this, and I keep swaying farther and further away from smart list as a reporting tool to be more of an inquiry tool. And the reason for that is, and I'll talk about it, is the Excel refreshable reports and things like that. We've evolved in our abilities in the reporting area and the reporting area. So smart lists to me have now become more of a place again for those to-dos that are on your homepage, your reminders, an inquiry lookup, a small subset of data that you want to go and look at. So I've really tried to sway away from these things as being something that you would run a list of 10,000 records and export that to Excel and then dial it up. So that's kind of my feeling on smart lists. Now, these things become a very, very functional capability for inquiries in the system. So you think of any window that you use right now where you pop open the magnifying glass, pops up to the window, now we sorted by the column and I type into the lookup field and I find my record from there. Well, take that a step further and use SmartList for that same concept. So this is a challenge that I like to throw out there, and this is something that I've been implementing on all the recent implementations for customers. When they say, hey, how do I find this? Okay, well, we're going to create a SmartList and we're going to use that as our inquiry to find this information that you're looking for. What do you look by? Okay, so I take them out and we say, what is it that you're looking for? In this case, I'm looking at sales transactions. And then that's really fuzzy. But what you do is pull up your search window in SmartList, find 4 fields, because we're limited to 4 fields in there, that you would search by. Sales transaction, I want to look by a customer, I want to look by a document number, PO number, maybe I want to drill down to the line item, whatever it may be, and put those all in there as the 4 searches with contains blank. SmartList still runs in its entirety with a contains blank, and you save that favorite as it is. In my case, I saved it document lookup. So now that user, all they have to do is they have to pull up that SmartList, click on search, and type in to the value field there, and that will immediately find that record for them based off of the value that they threw in there. So that's the nice thing is, and we're going by contains, which means that we don't have a begins with, and it's not that, not that struggle that you have in the normal magnifying glass lookups that are out there. So that becomes real functional aspect of SmartList. A nice thing to drive towards. I ran into one company where, well, what if I want to search by a 5th field? Create another SmartList favorite. Now you've got document lookup by customer PO number. Now you got document lookup by customer name or something like that. So just the variations that would come out of that. You have as many SmartList favorites as you want. You don't want it to get too convoluted, but you can get descriptive with those favorites as you create those. So again, that's kind of the area that I like for these to evolve into. That and then down to the reminders, like I said, where now we're trying to mine that specific data where we say, okay, show me where a sales transaction's over its customer's requested ship date or something. So getting into those variables as well. But I like that challenge here where, if you've ever struggled for lookups or, even the things with the smart sort and all of those types of things, doing the inquiries in here is a very nice way because you can drill through those, you can go to the transaction and get to everything you essentially need from the SmartList itself. So our next area to talk about from a reporting standpoint are SSRS reports, SQL Server Reporting Services reports. Try saying that, reporting services. Sounds fantastic. No, I like when they shorten things. SRS, you'll hear SSRS. They all mean the same thing essentially. This is Microsoft's answer to Crystal reports as I saw it. They introduced this to SQL Server. So anybody with SQL Server, this can get installed with it. And then now you have a reporting solution where we can essentially create a report based off of your database, deploy it to a browser environment for that customer or for that user, and they can digest those reports. These have absolutely nothing to do with GP users in the system. They are all based on Windows authentication and SQL security at that point. So they don't have to have a GP license to digest these things. You can throw them out there as long as we have the SQL tune or the security tuned up on the back end. They're in working with their report without any added cost to you. Could be added costs depending on the version, the licensing that you have with SQL. So just be aware of that if we have to add too many to it. I have strategies around that if you run into that wall. So they're highly functional and highly technical as well. So when you get into these, there is a wizard that you can use for it. I teach a class on this where beginners and intermediates can walk into my classroom and I can walk you through using the wizard to create very simple reports. I get into some of the deeper dive type things, but the code that they sit on, you got to be comfortable with SQL a lot of times with these, or you got to steal it from somebody like Victoria Uden. If you go out and grab her stuff, you're on your way. You can grab a lot of those different things to help support the data behind your report. So it is meant to be an as-is reporting option. Again, it's not one of those things where we're going to run it and we're going to pivot off of it and do a lot of things. It's really meant to be that when they deliver it, it's as is. It's how it's supposed to be when they see it at that point. We could create something too where they run it. I've got a couple of customers that run an SRS report and it does all this fancy structuring and things like that, and then they export it to Excel and do some more with it. So it does export nicely. These are beautiful because they will export to Excel nicely. They export to Word. They export to PDF. So we can generate all of these from to any one of those different file types in the system. And just to get an idea of how these things kind of look, these are some that, so this is an out-of-the-box one. This is one that I created that's basically all these different KPIs kind of rolled into one, and they lay within a browser. Now, not only are they text-based reports like we're seeing in this screenshot, but they can also be dashboards and things along those lines. So not as pretty as a pivot table graph and things like that. Those are a little bit nicer. They won't be as pretty as some of the Power BI stuff that we get into, but it was their answer for, if you get in and you want to see your sales look like an odometer for a car, oh, well, they got it. So you do have that capability of adding in some of those graphical elements to it or graphs within these as well. Those are nice too because they can be bolted on to your homepage. So if anybody's ever seen these, and this actually gets into the next area of discussion, but SSRS reports can actually be bolted on to what's called Business Analyzer. And that takes us into my next part of the discussion as well, and we'll see that here in just a sec. But all of the things, if you've ever thrown that Business Analyzer up on your homepage in GP, those are SRS reports. So those little graphs that show up and all those things, those are all based upon SRS reports out there. So we're going to let that load up. I had to do some fine tuning on my, hop back in here. So we'll take a look at those SRS reports here in just a second. So, all right, so Business Analyzer is my next part. And this just goes hand in hand as just basically a vessel for you guys to be able to allow users to get in and look at SRS reports in a little bit friendlier environment. If you don't like the browser base that it's in, then this gives you an alternative to throw things into. So Business Analyzer is available on your GP installation media. Again, it doesn't require a license for them to run this app. It's out available on, I was able to download it on my laptop. So on Windows Store, it showed up on there for me to download too. It's based on the SRS reports. Available on tablets and PC. I did get a version of it that I was able to download as an unknown source on my phone. So there's technical ways you could get around it not showing up on the Android store or something along those lines. And then it works out of the box with those GP reports that come with it. So let's give you an idea of where this would sit. So if I come in and let's just grab this up, grab this from the system here. So it's an app from the App Store on my Windows 10. And it's ever evolving. They added in some logic here where you're supposed to be able to pull MR reports into it. You're supposed to be able to do some things with Excel and stuff like that. But the majority of these that you're seeing are based off of the SRS side. So highly functional, does require quite a bit of customization if you want to make them really sing through this thing. But some of the out-of-the-box ones that you would see from GP would have some of those drill-down capabilities to work through them. So it's a nice way to be able to look at some of the different reports that are out there. In all honesty, I find it functional, but then I find it to be one of those things where you would just go to your browser to use these things too. So it's got a lot of functionality to it that you could adopt within it, but it does take a little while to get it set up. So no phones that I'm aware of. I think it'll work on Windows phones, so no phones. Sorry, bad joke. And then on my Android, like I said, there was a way that I could actually get the APK file and install it on there, but tablets, it'll run on Android tablets. I had it running on my Galaxy Note tab, runs on my laptop. I think they released it so it'll run on Apple devices as well. So if it doesn't show up out there on it, check your compatibility and make sure that it's available on those. So thank you. So just a few of the visualizations from this. Now, these are the ones that I've shown before, but as you can see on my homepage there, my homepage example, I have all of those different Business Analyzer pieces thrown up. Those are essentially the same visualizations that you can get within the app as well. So they share that report set. I can add new reports to the same repository that those things are available from as well. So we could always create custom views and things like that to show up within there. These are some pretty things that I think Diane got from the resources that she was talking about that's giving these further knowledge things of ISVs and things. She showed off some of the things from her business analyzer page. So it can be very visually appealing for the information that you're going to see. Any questions up to this point on any of those areas? So we dive now as our next area into the Excel-based reporting. So this is an area that I get a little bit more excited about because I like Excel reporting. So I might show, I like the SRS side, but I'm more of an analytic guy and just some of the bells and whistles and neat things that I've learned from Excel here recently. So, all right, so moving to our next area is our Excel-based reporting. So Excel-based reporting, you guys are aware of it right now. You can grab data, you throw it into Excel, you do some magic with it, and voila, you have some graphs and some data and some stuff that looks pretty for somebody to look at. But the other part that I want to emphasize is that those reports can be based upon data directly from the database, which means that they refresh. So that's a huge step in the right direction where instead of, like I said, with SmartList, running thousands of records and exporting that to Excel and then turning around and manipulating in Excel and do everything, now we could download all of that data into Excel and have it refresh our pivot tables immediately. So it's kind of the nice thing there is that now we get some of that live feed of data. So we can create a table, pivot table, graphs, dashboard solutions meant for analyzing the data and mining information. Obviously, you could structure that in a specific way that looks pretty that you could hand to somebody if you needed to. One of the things that I've been working on here recently that I developed for another is that we can actually bolt some parameters into the report. So one of the big things that comes out of these that I ran into with another customer is, like Diane was saying with that company data archive, you've got years, decades of information sitting in your GP. When you run the out-of-the-box Excel reports, they bomb a lot of times. If you have millions of records in your database that this thing's trying to run off, they're not filtered by a specific date range. So one of the nice things that you can do that I've developed here recently is that you can create these where you could basically fill in a cell on your Excel report and it would filter that data in. So to give you an example, I have one out here that I did for just sales transactions. And what this does is it sits on that data connection. It's using what's called a stored procedure in the system. Basically the same thing that your SRS reports would be sitting on. So when you pull up an SRS report or a GP report and you're filling in the to and from and things like that, same criteria here. I want to filter my data in this report based off of a date range. So I come in here and I change this to the 3rd. And then as soon as I get off of that, my data within there pairs down to that information. You know what? I want to go out to the 15th here, and I tab off of that, and it's rerunning my data set based off of that. To give you a better idea, let's go back to 2016 here. It fails because I've got a to and from that's not logical. So you can have it based on that information to give you a wider range. The benefit of this is that you get that upfront ability to pare down the data before it goes out and grabs it. So if you're timid or you ever run any of the out-of-the-box Excel reports that I'll show you here in a second, this is a great way to be able to run those and pare down that large amount of data that you have right into the spreadsheet. And it's pretty easy to take the existing ones that are out there and manipulate them into that. So if you have one that you love, but it runs too much data or it fails, what is it? It's 1.5 million records or something that Excel can handle right at the moment. If it bombs out or it's just taking forever, we could throw those on there pretty quickly to give you a report. That works. So last bullet on here that I want to emphasize, if you haven't seen them to date, there is a whole host of canned Excel reports that you can deploy for GP that are based on the canned favorites in SmartList. So where you see a SmartList in GP right at the moment, let's give you an example here on the fly. So if I come in, I grab SmartList. Well, let's say financial. What do we have under financial? Something fun. Current financials journal, okay? I've got this, and I love running this report, but you know what? I would love to have it in an Excel version. I should be able to find current financial journal underneath financial and in the Excel reports under that exact same name. So any of those that you see that are named with an asterisk on the end, there should be an Excel version of that available as well. So if we come in and we hit Excel reports here, and given that I've deployed everything, I got 36 reports out here. There it is. Current Financials Journal. Yes, it's gigantic in the way that they named things out there, but there it is with its exact name, which means that when I double click on this, it should pop up that spreadsheet for me to look at. Now, I'm going to say if you've never gotten in and you've never ran any of these reports before, you're going to get an error. And most likely that's because you haven't had your SQL security set up for your Windows user to view this. All these Excel reports, nothing to do with GP users. So we can deploy these out, and regular users who don't have a GP license can use these refreshable reports. So there's my report in its entirety. Nice thing to emphasize on the back side of this is that all of these are just one SQL code away from adding new fields and such. So this is all the data that it sits on, and these are the data fields that it's selecting in. So if I wanted to add a user-defined field or something like that to this, really all I got to do is add it into this code. So it's very easy to manipulate these things and evolve them to where they need to be. So if you've started with one of these, let's say you took your current financials journal favorite and you added 5 new columns to it and you save that as your favorite, this won't pick it up natively. We'd have to add those, but it's doable. All right, so back to here. So what can you get from an Excel report? And just a few of the visualizations that I like to use. So this was a custom dashboarding solution that was developed for a customer where they have multiple users that log in and digest this information, and based off of their security, based off of their location, their security, and the information behind them, they see specific data. So a lot of fluid functionality out of Excel. They took this path because before they were creating all of this visualization manually. It's fine this way. Doesn't bother me. Oh, okay. Now I know. All right. So it's very nice because, again, they were creating this all manually. Now all of this data refreshes automatically from the database. So there's high complexity that we can put behind this to have it automate these things versus you having to always do it that way going forward. So the last one that I'm going to dive into is Power BI. Anybody heard of Power BI? We've probably thrown it around a few times. I might have mentioned it just a couple of times in previous 15 user groups or something, you know, just a few times. So Power BI is a big push that Microsoft has been making for years now to give you a web-based graphical reporting solution. Now, there's 2 different versions. There's a free version, which you guys can download today, create dashboards, and throw them onto the web. Doesn't have any of the added functionality of some of the security and things like that. It doesn't have the direct import capabilities. But the idea is today, you could get in, you could grab data from your database, and you could throw that up to the web for you to look at somewhere else. So what I've like to emphasize is that here's some of the different things that we've done in the past. We have a wonderful individual on our team who's very talented with making these things pretty. I think you've met him before at one of the previous ones, Greg. These are some of the things that he created. So one of the exciting things that I'm bringing to the table today is we now have a host of GP-based Power BI reports that are part of a package. So if you see anything today as we're kind of looking through this that you go, it'd be kind of cool to look at, let us know. We're happy to give you a demo of how that looks, and then it is something that's purchasable where we basically throw it in and you're running with Power BI. It does require the Pro version. So the Pro version is $9.99 a user. So just kind of keep that in mind. You could get 1 user. The other thing I like to throw out there is that I've been running off of a Pro version for, I think, 180 days now without having to buy a thing. So they have a trial, at least they used to, where you can pretty much extend that for quite a while. So just kind of keep that in mind, throwing little tricks out there that people on the licensing team, Mike's back there frowning at me right now for. So Power BI gives us the capability, and what I want to show is kind of how this works. So what does Power BI bring to the table that some of the other reporting solutions don't is the mobility of it. The ability for users to get in and look at this from any platform without necessarily having to be on premise or anything like that. So we can take that report and throw it up to the web at any moment. And what I want to do is just kind of give you a little tour of how that would work. So I'm just going to log into my Power BI website here. So this is my user experience at this point for Power BI. The user would log in, and then they get whatever their default workspace is. They can look at these. We can customize this however we want. But then I've got all these other workspaces that has been added on here as well. I'm going to hop into my GP report bundle here because it's relevant. And I'm just going to look at some of my reports that we've created out here. So this is the user experience at this point. They're diving into these reports, they're looking at these reports on the web, and they're working with them from there. Now, the users then, these reports have the ability to, potentially drill down. They have all these different slicers that you can essentially do up here. As I click on things, you can see my data changing. So the user is able to get in and say, you know what, I was really wanting to see January of 2017, what did that look like? And drill down to that information. And then we can click on other regions. So different areas can be set up with interactive capabilities to say that I want to see certain attributes from that report. I can create tabs on here similar to what I have in Excel to be able to drill down further and look at further information. So there's a lot of reporting visualizations that are available out there. There's straight to tables, there's matrix, all sorts of these different formats that we could throw this thing into. So a lot of mobility to this. So this user's looking at it on a laptop at this point. To pull this up, it's all browser-based. So they could pull it up on a tablet and have the same experience. What I wanted to kind of demonstrate here. So I've got a thing called Side Sync, which allows me to bolt onto my phone here. So we'll see if this actually works while I'm sharing a screen here. All right, let's get you unlocked real quick. All right, so I'm in my phone now. So you're seeing my screen here. And I'm just going to hop over. You get to see all the fun things that I have on here. Who wants to listen to some music? All right. So I'm going to jump in because navigating a phone on a computer is not as easy as it sounds. So let's hop back in here and you'll at least see the app show up on phone here. So I'm going to hop into Power BI. We're in the Power BI now, app on my phone. And from there, again, all those workspaces that I had available to me, I'm able to drill into those. Let's say that I want to look at the C-Store demo. Let's look at the exact same one I'm looking back here at. So now, I like how it does that. So this is me looking at it basically on my phone. I could just be holding this up here for you guys to see, but you get the idea of kind of how this thing would look on a mobile phone. These reports can also be tailored to look a certain way and to be more optimized for the reports on your phone as well. So we can actually create them to look prettier. But same experience for that user as they go from one to the other. So then they can navigate around the phone, get back, maybe they want to look at the sales report now, and they're just navigating around the phone on their touchscreen or on their tablet in the same fashion that they would on the web. So same experience. And that is an app that's available on every store out there. So Apple, Windows, Android. I could get that same browser experience too if I want to go through the browser on my phone, but the app itself, it's free download. And once it's bolted on, you've got high functionality out of it. It's a lot easier to use the app. So Power BI just gives that extra push, extra functionality that you may not have out of Excel. And of course, that mobility is a huge thing where, okay, if it was an Excel report, now we've got to have people VPN to get to it, or you could go with a SharePoint, Office 365 type deployment, or they could go to the Power BI website and be looking at everything pretty easily. The reports that those are based upon too have some nice functionality to them for being able to limit the data that's coming into them. So I could throw an entire data set in there, take my sales transaction, but then say, if it's this user logging into Power BI, so they plug their credentials in, mine shunter at turnkeytech.com. When I look at this report, I can only see this set of customers for Illinois. So you can pare it down by user on that premium user.
I got a question online.
Yeah.
Taylor asks, what are the safety concerns for the web-based Power BI? I'm guessing that means security. I'm not sure.
Hopefully I answered that a little bit. So security-based, it's all, I don't know, that goes into a lot of different details. So security for the user being able to see it, you define that all. So if you're afraid a user is going to get in and see the wrong type of data, you have to tune it up beforehand, but you can have that data set basically show whatever you want per user that's using it. If we're talking internet security here, it's all based on the cloud security that Microsoft backs up. So shouldn't run into too many with that. If you had a different question in mind, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer it after the session too. No problem. So let's hop back in here. And I'm going to remember to change my display settings so everybody doesn't see everything that's out there. Is it what, the duplicate? Yeah, there we go. All right. So desktop client, web-based reporting available. So one thing that I didn't show is that there is this desktop client that you can go out to today and download and run these reports. As I'm slicing and dicing this report, I can change the visualizations on it. So this is all on my desktop with the free version. I pulled in the sales line item view that SmartList are based upon, and now I'm just digging through that data. So I can today download a desktop version of this that costs me nothing. To deploy these to the web still costs me nothing. I can publish this report to the web without any issues. So I'm going to save the changes. I'm going to hit publish on here, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that this thing goes where I want it to. Whose stuff do I want to mess up? I'm going to put it to my workspace so Greg doesn't look at my terrible looking simple Power BI here and give me criticism. All right, so we'll throw it out there. This should be publishing to the web now, to my workspace. I can click on it there, and now I'm out on my web where I've gone in and deployed it, published it. Functionality there is that I could be on my desktop version, hit publish, that would rerun it, throw it out to the web, and now whoever has that license login from there, now they see the refresh data. So kind of the cool thing is that when I refresh it there and deploy it, it's refresh data on the web as well. Different ways to get this data as well. What I'm using here is an import, which means that it grabs all the records, and then I'm just slicing and dicing off of that. There's direct query reports that you can do that will refresh every minute if you want them to. You have to think about workload on your server, but there's ways that you can set it up to be real time. So I walked in and I swear Domino's has it. I walked into the Domino's store the other day, and they had a screen up in the back where they were preparing the pizzas and everything, and it had dashboards that really reminded me of this. I wanted to ask them, but I didn't think the workers would really necessarily know at that point. But they'd be like, sir, you're going to have to settle down. So, but that's the idea of being able to throw those things up. A lot of functionality out of the free version. And what it'll do is if you run into a road where you don't have access, the license doesn't take care of it, it's just going to let you know. But like I said, there's that free version you can run off of, and then you can actually get the trial of the pro version for X amount of time. Start with the free, move into the pro, work with the pro. Don't get too attached to the pro if you don't intend to keep it, because whenever the pro license runs out, all of a sudden your reports stop working for the meantime until you renew. But you can at least get your feet wet with it to start with. So those are the kind of the out-of-the-box free ones that I can throw at you right now. SRS is included in your installation media. SmartList is, of course, available to you right out of the box with GP. Power BI has a free version. Excel, of course, is out there. Everybody owns Excel these days, it seems like. If you ever run out of capabilities, or you know what, I don't want to do the work myself, I want somebody who's done it for me, there's a lot of ISVs out there. These are ones that I've listed before, but these gentlemen have done things in the past where they mention that they work with GP immediately. So they have things that'll plug into GP to work with. Power BI, I threw that on there just because we now have that. I should have had our logo on there because we've got some things that we can throw on for it. But just some out there. I'm sure there's more that we're going to learn about from our new representative. Kim that's going to teach us all sorts of exciting things. And then if you run out of options from the ones that say they do stuff with GP, I mean, this is just a quick search on the web that I did, that these are all BI, reporting solution people too as well that do different things with it. So essentially every single one of these could grab GP data because they bolt into the system and grab SQL data. So all of your GP data sits on SQL at this point. All right. I just throw one other thing out there because I'm always looking for new things and exciting things. If you have a reporting package that I didn't discuss today or that you think is so cool or anything, let me know. I always like to hear about those things and look into them because, again, if it's something you use and it works for you, I want to pass that knowledge along in the future to somebody else who may benefit from it as well.